All right, guys, to finish up 2.5, just a couple of different examples here. With all of the different methods we've been showing you, a lot of times there's not just one way to solve the problem. So here's a couple examples where you can find the derivative in different ways, which you've seen a little bit. You've seen times where you could have used the quotient rule, but we had you use the product rule. There's a lot of options available to you. And from here on out, you're going to just kind of determine what comes to you first and what you're most comfortable working with. And that's what you're going to use to move forward with on the problem. So for this first derivative, we've got y equals x over e to the 4x. So if I'm using the quotient rule, then I'm going to use the top and the bottom of this function. And I'm going to take the derivative of the top, which is just 1, multiplied by the bottom. So e to the 4x. And then I'm going to minus the derivative of the bottom. Well, the derivative of e to the 4x is just e to the 4x multiplied by the derivative of that exponent, multiplied by the 4. And then I need to multiply by the top again, which is just x. And all of that is going to be over e4 to the x squared. So I'm going to put e4 to the x squared on the bottom. Okay. From here, I can just simplify a little bit. I get e to the 4x minus this 4x can go ahead and move out front. And I still have an e to the 4x up here above. And then on the bottom, I've got e to the 4x all squared. Now this term has an e to the 4x. This term does, and this term does. So I can actually reduce all of those by 1 e to the 4x. I can cancel 1 out. So this is going to cancel out and just become a 1 minus this e to the 4x is going to cancel out, and I just get 4x on top. And then on the bottom, because I canceled 1 on the top, I can cancel 1 on the bottom. So I end up with just e to the 4x. So that would be my y prime. Now, if I wanted to use my log rules that we kind of practiced with last time, so let's just drop this problem down here again. We've got y equals x over e to the 4x. So if I wanted to use my logarithm rules, I would say that the natural log of y is equal to the natural log of x over e to the 4x. And those rules tell me that I can rewrite this as ln of y equals the natural log of x minus the natural log of e to the 4x, which simplifies even further because I can get natural log of y equals natural log of x. Natural log of e drops out, and I'm just left with minus 4x. Now I'll do the derivative. So if I take the derivative of the left-hand side, the derivative of natural log of y is just 1 over y multiplied by the dy dx. And that's equal to the derivative of the natural log of x is just 1 over x. And the derivative of negative 4x is just minus 4. So now to get the dy dx by itself, I'm going to times both sides by y. So I end up with dy dx equals 1 over x minus 4. Now, I'm not going to multiply this y in because I know what y is. I mean, I could leave it there, but I know that y is equal to x over e to the 4x. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as 1 over x minus 4 times x over e to the 4x. Now, right now, this doesn't look exactly like my answer from before. They're just a little bit different. But if I were to distribute this in, so if I were to say, okay, x over x e to the 4x minus 4x over e to the 4x. Well, my x's are going to cancel here, and I'm just left with a 1 on top. So this becomes 1 over e to the 4x minus 4x over e to the 4x. And since I have a common denominator, that's just 1 minus 4x over e to the 4x, which now it matches exactly what I had before, okay? Either way works. Sometimes the quotient, in this one, the quotient rule, which is usually the one that is the ugliest, actually went pretty quick. But you could have also used the natural log rules and done your derivative that way, okay? Now, finding the equation of a tangent line. And I'm sure you've noticed by now, we ask you to do this a lot. It comes up all the time. And there's a reason for that. It's a common thing that comes up on the AP test. From multiple choice to free response, from the beginning of the stuff that you just learned on day one all the way through, this is one of those questions that they can ask you, which is why it comes up a lot in our practice. So we're looking for the equation of our tangent line at the point 1, 4. So remember, we need a point, which we have, and we need a slope at that point. So I need the slope at the point 1, 4, which means I've got to find the derivative of this big, ugly looking function. So finding the derivative of y is just my dy dx, or your y prime for those of you that like to write it that way. So the derivative of 4x squared, well, that's 8x. And then I'm going to minus the derivative of the natural log of 2x squared minus 1. Well, I know I'm going to have a fraction, and on the bottom, I put the inside. And on the top, I put the derivative of the inside. So I drop the 2 down, and I get 4x. The minus 1 goes away, so that right there is my derivative. So the derivative, my y prime, is 8x minus 4x over 2x squared minus 1. Now, I can't reduce this 2x and this 4x because of this minus 1, so that's as far as I can go. Other than now I need to find the slope at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and take my point 1, 4, which means that x is equal to 1, and I'm going to plug that into my function here. So the derivative is going to equal 8 times 1 minus 4 times 1 all over 2 times 1 squared. Be careful, don't accidentally square the 2, minus 1. Which equals 8 minus 4 times 1 is 4. 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2 minus 1 is 1. So this just becomes 8 minus 4, which is equal to 4. So my slope at my point, my m is going to equal to 4. So now I can just plug it into that formula. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus my y1 is the 4 equals my slope m times x minus x1, which was 1. And on a free response, that's great right there. Multiple choice, they're probably going to go a step further. So they're going to say y minus 4 equals 4x minus 4. They want you to distribute the 4 and then add 4 to both sides. So you end up with y equals 4x. And that would be your multiple choice answer, probably. They don't always simplify it all the way, but they kind of have a tendency to do so.